Hello, my name is Lidya Radin, and I'd like to welcome you to our show today. Our show is called Crooked Doctors, and you can call us, talk to us. That's the name of our show. We're going to be on Fridays from 6 to 7 o'clock. And let me give you our live call-in show. If you want to talk to us, you can talk to us on, oops, let me just, you can give us a buzz at, this is a live call-in show. This is our phone number. We're called Crooked Doctors. We're at 212-245-7273. So if you'd like to give us a call, we're interested in taking your calls. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Lidya Radin. I'm doing a show called Crooked Doctors. Now, why is this important to you? Well, I got crooked doctors, I got crooked judges, I got crooked attorneys, I got crooked detectives, and the purpose of my show is I feel very fortunate that Manhattan Neighborhood Network has given me this opportunity to put facts on the record. Unlike most of the people here, I'm not here to start a career, I'm not here to entertain, I'm here to save my life and the lives of other innocent people. Let me give you the broad picture. My medical school, the Albert Einstein College of Medicine of Yeshiva University, has been stalking me through life. They've committed crime after crime after crime, and most recently they engineered a physical assault on me that left me with serious bodily injury, could have left me paralyzed or dead. I was illegally convicted and illegally incarcerated at Rikers Island Prison for a year because of the lies that my medical school told. That's the Albert Einstein College of Medicine of Yeshiva University. This is vitally important, life-saving information for pre-meds, their families, for anyone who's being prosecuted by Detective Cologne at the 34th Precinct or District Attorney Vance. The district attorney in Manhattan can prosecute no one while they continue to engage in crimes towards me, very serious crimes like the obstruction of justice. So the purpose of my show is to put enough facts on the record so that I'm not murdered by these people. I have a commitment from the FBI in New York to accept a conference call from me and my attorneys to discuss the very serious crimes against me. And I have a commitment from District Attorney Vance about a week ago, last Thursday, in front of lots of witnesses. I shook Mr. Vance's hand, and he promised to accept a phone call from my attorney, and we'd have a sit-down meeting where we could discuss what action District Attorney Cyrus Vance plans on taking against Detective Cologne from the 34th Precinct who lied in my case. Now, why should you believe me? You shouldn't. I'm going to present to you tonight a few documents where you'll see that Detective Cologne from the 34th Precinct lied to illegally incarcerate me and illegally imprison me. He's not the only person who lied in my case, but this show is going to be dedicated to Detective Cologne. Now, a word about me. I treated Detective Cologne like a lady. I called Detective Cologne. He admitted that he lied on the witness stand to illegally incarcerate and illegally convict me. And I said to Detective Cologne, if you were threatened, if something happened, please come with me now to the judge and admit what you did. He refused. Here's what Detective Cologne says. I asked him, I felt like I was in a spaghetti western. Detective Cologne, this town ain't big enough for the both of us, so how are we going to live with each other? And Detective Cologne proposes that I should pretend that he doesn't exist and he'll pretend that I don't exist. Well, it doesn't work that way, Detective Cologne, and here's why. There are other detectives who lied on the witness stand. They were prosecuted. They would like to know why they're being treated differently than you, because when they lied on the stand, They were prosecuted, they lost everything. But Detective Cologne lies on the witness stand and nothing happens. Why is there a double standard? So Detective Cologne, you've got other detectives who did as badly as you did, and they want those answers. And here's the other problem. I want to go to Florida. I have to go to Florida to visit and help my mother. That's where she lives. And when I go to Florida, I'm going to get jumped. I already was threatened by the North Bergen police. Go down to Florida, we're going to kidnap you, we're going to jump you off, we're going to take you off the streets. And when that happens, there'll be a phone call to Detective Cologne. And what is Detective Cologne going to do? Is he going to start telling the truth, or is he going to continue to lie? Here's a clue. He'll lie. Because what else can Detective Cologne do? He certainly can't start telling the truth. And I'm going to be falsely imprisoned again. I've had enough with being persecuted by my medical school. They've taken years of my life. At some point, they've got to stop. And I should not have to go to the extremes where I'm putting this out on public access TV. Now, how can you use this information if you're out there in the viewing audience? Please, by word of mouth, let anyone know if you're being prosecuted by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Call me. I'll testify against them. You can reach us by our live call-in show, but you can also, I have an email address set up, and let me get that email address for you. You can email us at crookedDoctors@yahoo.com. I'll respond to your emails. I have more evidence than I know what to do with. In fact, I have a boatload of evidence. You can also look at some of this on, I was making videos on YouTube. You can go to YouTube, the internet site, and type in under username Crooked Doctors, and you'll see me making videos where I go through litigation point after litigation point after litigation point about how my school lied and how judges helped them lie. Notably, Judge Patterson in the federal courts. So let me go to a couple documents where you can confirm this for yourself. Next week, there's a very nice member of the religious community who got a master's degree from Yeshiva University. He'll be joining me here as a guest on Crooked Doctors on my show. It's very interesting because he'll provide a counterpoint. He has experience with Yeshiva University, and he has a few comments that he'd like to add also. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some. You know something, before I go to that, let me give you some more information. This is, let me go to some people who've been helping me. I'll give them a little shout out. This is the Nassau County Civic Association website, and you can go to this website. And these folks were very helpful. They're outraged that yours and mine tax dollars are being spent to illegally convict and illegally incarcerate me. They feel that their tax dollars should not be spent in persecution and malicious prosecution of innocent people, and they helped me make proper complaints and give public shows of support. So I wanted to thank the Nassau County Civic Association. They are wonderful people. I say this without exaggeration. I'd probably be dead today if it wasn't for people of good conscience like the folks who at the Nassau County Civic Association who have experience with the kind of crime and corruption that I'm fighting. So thank you so much. I wanted to say thank you for that to them. I wanted also to show you Manhattan Neighborhood Network. This is the website of the public access TV channel that I'm broadcasting from. If you go to their website and you click on, you click on here, this is channel 1 and it's Time Warner Cable channel 34 at home, but if you click on this, you can watch us you can watch me streaming live from, whoops. You can watch me streaming live, which doesn't work from in studio, so I'm going to stop. But if you go here, you can watch Manhattan Neighborhood Network, Channel 1 or Channel 34 at Time Warner Cable. We do stream live from the video, from the internet, I'm sorry. I am taping this, and the raw footage will be placed on Blimp TV, and I will edit it for YouTube. And again, the point of this show is to make sure that there are enough facts out there so that when I appeal my illegal conviction, I'm not going to be subjected to the same dirty tricks that were used to illegally convict and illegally incarcerate me. Now, I checked my criminal file down at Manhattan Criminal Court at 100 Center Street, and I went to the appeals court at 60 Center Street, and I'm sorry to report, and I did take witnesses with me. They will be filling out affidavits. They will be confirming everything I say. My attorney is coming down to the court to look also. My documents in the court have been tampered with. For example, my motion to dismiss was taken apart and reassembled so that it's incoherent and it's out of order. I mean, these are the kind of stupid, dirty tricks that I have to deal with. The law is not a game. Playing these kinds of tricks is not a game. At 60 Center Street at the appeals court, some of my documents, one of the judges involved in my litigation is a federal judge named Judge Patterson. He made a 40-page ruling a few years ago. The first 20 pages make me look bad. The last 20 pages are where Judge Patterson made stuff up. And he doesn't want anyone to see this. He doesn't want anybody to see the kind of stupidity that he made up. And I'll give you one example. Judge Patterson claims that I, as a former student, cannot access and correct my records. That's wrong, and I'll be showing you how that's wrong in the upcoming episodes of Crooked Doctors. Because again, we have crooked doctors and crooked judges and crooked police and crooked district attorneys. I've got more crime and corruption than I know what to do with, and I'm lucky to be alive today. And again, this is not about me. This is about if you're being prosecuted by District Attorney Vance's office, you can use this information to get yourself a change of venue, which is a change of geographic location, and maybe you'll have a better shot at a justice system that's not out to persecute you. Maybe you'll have a better opportunity somewhere else. If Detective Cologne is a detective in your case, you can use the information that I'm bringing to the public forum to defend yourself against Detective Cologne, and here's how. I served time at Rikers Island with a woman who was convicted of breaking the drug laws, of buying illegal drugs. She was guilty, the first time she was prosecuted and convicted, she was guilty of the first drug buy. She was guilty of the second drug buy. She was guilty of the third drug buy. But by the fourth time, when the police had arrested her and the district attorney's office had convicted her, there were no drugs involved. There was no evidence that she tried to purchase drugs. There was no physical evidence at all. Basically, a police detective said he saw her walking through a known drug neighborhood, and she was convicted. She was convicted on her history. She was convicted on the say-so of a detective. So if you're out there and it's Detective Cologne's word against your word, you win because Detective Cologne has no credibility. And there's a show here on Manhattan Neighborhood Network called Community Cop. I talked to one of the gentlemen who worked on who was a police officer with the NYPD, the New York City Police Department, for about 20 years, and I asked him about this. And he's like, well, what can Detective Cologne possibly say? How would that line of questioning go? Well, Detective Cologne, do you always lie to illegally convict people? No, I just lied in Lidya Radin's case. Oh, so you were persecuting Miss Radin? No, I lie in all the cases. I mean, Detective Cologne has no credibility. And again, I gave Detective Cologne, I called him, we discussed this. I gave him every opportunity to get his boss and to call my attorney and have us go down in front of the judge, and he could have admitted that he lied, and maybe he could have salvaged some portion of his career, his pension, his credibility, his standing in the neighborhood. But to continue to lie, to continue to say things like, well, you just pretend I don't exist and I'll pretend you don't exist, that doesn't cut it, Detective Colon. So let me get to the meat and potatoes here. This is Manhattan Neighborhood Network, the website. You can watch us streaming live on the internet. So if you'd like to give us a call, you can do that and ask me some questions, you can. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a police report from 2005 that shows that Detective Colon lied on the witness stand. Now, this is not hard to understand. Detective Colon, in my case, claimed, and I'm going to just increase the magnification here so everyone out there in the viewing audience can see this. This is a police report from 2005. On the witness stand, come back to me for a minute. On the witness stand, Detective Colon had said that I was making complaints against Yeshiva University. I had discovered that my educational records were falsified, my medical records were falsified, my financial records were falsified. I had to go into federal court and sue the Albert Einstein College of Medicine of Yeshiva University in an attempt to get my records and correct them. Right now, I still don't have my records. Right now, Yeshiva University is guilty of the crime of obstruction of justice. I still can't get my complete unedited records, and I can make a list of the documents that are still missing. However, in May of 2005, Judge Patterson in the federal courts ruled against me erroneously, and he made up a bunch of fabricated rulings, and we'll discuss those in detail. A month later, I had discovered that my financial records were falsified. There was an attorney in Albany who was willing to help me, and he had been telling me to make Freedom of Information Act requests. If I couldn't get my records from Yeshiva University, I was going to outside agencies. The school reports to outside agencies, so I was going to outside agencies and making Freedom of Information Act requests to try to get my records. And to my horror, I discovered that the Albert Einstein College of Medicine had falsified financial records. And I discovered this a month after Judge Patterson had ruled against me in the federal courts, thereby giving me newly discovered evidence and the ability to amend my federal complaint. And we'll get to that later. But the bottom line is, when I discovered this, I organized up the financial information that was falsified. There were other students who were contacting me, and they were building their cases on mine. The reason why I was so important was because I was here in the timeline, and the students who came after me were calling me. These are students who had been illegally expelled from my medical school, Einstein Medical School, and they were building their cases on mine. What they were showing was that what happened to them were not, the illegal actions against them were not isolated events. They were not unique, isolated one-time events, but they were part of a pattern and a practice of hurting students at this school and of civil rights violations at this school, because some of the things that happened to us were common to all our cases. We were, for example, illegally expelled without a fair hearing. Now, when we went to community leaders, and we went to people like Elie Wiesel, Nobel Peace Prize winner, Holocaust survivor, when we went to community leaders, oh, by the way, you should be aware, Elie Wiesel sits on the board of trustees of my medical school. Elie Wiesel is Mr. Where there is injustice, we must interfere. That's his whole shtick. So we contacted Mr. Wiesel, and we said, you know, before you get on that plane to go to Darfur, to badmouth Arabs, could you deal with the injustice at your medical school? Because you sit on the board of trustees of my medical school. One of the students who contacted me had community leaders from the Bulgarian Jewish community contact Mr. Wiesel's office. Every dirty trick to make sure that this meeting would not take place happened. They were all overcome. I had written a letter to Mr. Wiesel that was presented to him. He read the letter in front of witnesses. And what we asked him was, we didn't ask to be reinstated. We didn't ask to be vindicated. We asked for a simple, fair hearing. We asked to be in the room to hear the arguments against us. What a radical concept. We asked to be in a meeting room to hear the arguments against us before our medical school took adverse action against us, like suspension or expulsion. Before a life-altering event like suspension or expulsion from medical school, we asked for a simple, fair hearing where we could be in the room to hear the arguments against us. So Mr. Elie Wiesel, Nobel Peace Prize winner, Holocaust survivor, Mr. Where there is injustice, we must interfere. Could you please interfere already? All we asked was for a simple, fair hearing. You have no idea how stupid medical school students are. We trusted the system. You know, our experience as undergraduates is that we always had a very good relationship with our undergraduate schools. It never occurred to us that our professors would lie and pull every dirty trick in the book. By the time our minds, the nature of scientific inquiry is that it's always above board, honest. You show everybody what you're doing. That's how you do scientific experiments. That's how we had been trained. By the time we get into the mindset of deceptive practices, we were railroaded out of school. We didn't even know what happened to us. And it's so cruel and so unfair. It's harder to deceive law school students because they're studying their rights. So Yeshiva University, for example, I went down to their law school and I got their hearing procedure for law school students. And it takes care of their basic civil rights. They have basic civil liberties, but not at the medical school. And it's easier to fool a medical school student because, you know, we're not studying our rights. We have some vague concept that, well, the system will be fair and nothing bad will happen. We're idiots. We can speak in depth and detail about how electrons move through a benzene ring, but ask us about our rights, we don't know. And that's how cruel it is. That's how sadistic it is. Medical school students, you would think are bright, don't realize that they're being railroaded out of medical school until they're on that train down that road, their lives are being destroyed, and then it occurs to them that, hey, they never got a fair hearing. So we went to so I, you know, put all this into a 5-page, 6-page letter to Elie Wiesel and said, who would understand better than you a man who had everything taken from him without the rule of law, by force? Everything is being taken from us without the rule of law and by force. Could you please intervene? And basically, Elie Wiesel, metaphorically, figuratively, not literally, spit in our faces. He did nothing. So, I was compelled to sue my medical school. They had illegally expelled me. They had falsified records. They had stalked me through life, telling horrible stories about me, awful lies. And other students were calling me to tell me that the same things had happened to them. We had formed a litigation group. And as part of this litigation group, we were sharing information. Now, in May of 2005, Judge Patterson, that's Robert P. Patterson, Jr., in the federal courts, the Southern District of New York, ruled against me erroneously. And he made up a bunch of rulings. He just fabricated, wholesale made things up. They're incredibly stupid. I ran them past attorneys at the House Judiciary Committee. Some of them laughed. Oh, Congressman Crowley laughed when I told him some of this stuff. Congressman Crowley is a very bright man. He got it in about 3 seconds. One of the things that Judge Patterson had said in effect was that I, as a former student, could not access and correct my records. And as soon as I told that to Congressman Crowley, he laughed. He's like, Lydia, that's just nonsense. Of course you're allowed to access and correct your records. Now, let's think about this for a minute, because Judge Patterson is a graduate of Columbia University Law School. And as he's sitting on the bench thinking about this case, does he really think, I mean, the law is based on simple common sense. So we don't really have to know the law. We can just sit there and think about this for a moment. Judge Patterson is a graduate of Columbia University Law School. Does he honestly and sincerely believe that if Columbia University made a one-time honest mistake in his records, that he, as a former student, could not access and correct them? Of course not. That's stupid. And again, I'll show you federal law and school policy, which also says that, of course, I, as a former student, can fully access and correct my records. So Judge Patterson made something up. He's legislating from the bench. He's completely disregarding the law. He's violating the separation of powers. We don't put judges on the bench to make stuff up. We have a legislature. In order to pass a law is a laborious, time-consuming process where the public is weighing in. There's lots of checks and balances. The job of Judge Patterson is to enforce the law, not to make up fabricated rulings like he did in my case. And I'm going to show you how Judge Patterson, in upcoming episodes of Crooked Doctors, Crooked Judges, Crooked Lawyers, and Crooked Police, how the federal judge, Judge Patterson, made stuff up, made bad law up from the bench, and now is such an egomaniac that when I showed him that he was wrong, refuses to correct the record and or enforce the law. And the reason for that is he's serving my medical school's evil interests, dishonest interests, because now that his ruling that I, as a former, in effect, his ruling is that I, as a former student, cannot access and correct my records, his fabricated, incorrect, erroneous ruling can be cited to hurt other students in the future. He claims I can go do another lawsuit. That's not the proper action that should be taken here. The proper action that should be taken here is that Judge Patterson should suck it up already, admit that he was wrong, correct the record, and enforce the law. According to federal law, and this is the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which is my medical school's stated policy, a student is defined as anyone who is or has been in attendance at an educational institution. So I, as a former student, do have rights by federal law to fully access and correct my records. And we'll get to that in a minute. So Judge Patterson ruled against me in May of 2005, and about a month later, I discovered falsified financial information, and I had to contact my school. They claimed that they were annoyed. You gotta love these people, don't you? They were annoyed, and part of, they were annoyed that I had to contact them to ask for my records so that I could correct them. They falsified financial information, and they wanted me to pay thousands of dollars for classes that I never got. So I'm a whistleblower, and I'm reporting federal student loan fraud, fraud in the federal Pell Grant program, and fraud in the state TAP program. So my medical school made promises to me. They didn't keep those promises. They got a lot of money for classes that I never got. And when I discovered, for example, that my medical school had falsified financial information, I organized up all the information, went with another member of my litigation group to Congressman Weiner's office, had meetings with Congressman Weiner's staffers, chief of staff. We organized all the information, and we sent it off to the Bronx District Attorney's office. This is in like the summer of 2005, And the Bronx District Attorney's Office, specifically Assistant District Attorney Linda Tacoma, wrote back and she lied. And I'm going to get into her lie in just a minute. After she lied, I went to my local police department, and I was living in Jersey City at the time, and I spoke to Sergeant James Sullivan. We went through this in some detail, and Sergeant Sullivan photocopied New York statutes, and he agreed the school was guilty of crimes. He told me not to get too upset because I had a consumer fraud in addition as a civil complaint in addition to crimes, and he's like, Lydia, don't get too upset. For consumer fraud, you get treble damages, which is you multiply the damage. Ultimately collect for these transgressions and crimes that were committed against you. So he's like, you're going to get treble damages, and the law provides for attorney's fees. And he made a phone call to his detectives and to the Bronx District Attorney. So let's look at the police report that I made in 2005. And let me just change the camera view so you can see this. And I'm going to increase the zoom a little bit so you can see this. Okay. So this is a police report, and you can see right here, I made this police report in December of 2005. Okay. So let's just increase the zoom just a bit. So there's no question in anybody's mind that this is a police report that I made in December 16th of 2005. Okay, there's the date. We can all see this. I made this police report in December of 2005. And that was me living at 278 3rd Street, Apartment 1 in Jersey City. Let me zoom out just a little bit. Okay. And why is this document important? Why is it important for you all out there to see this? Because Detective Cologne, this is the Jersey City Police Department investigative report. If you email us at crookedDoctors, if you email us at crookedDoctors, and look at our YouTube videos, if you email us, I will actually send you this police report as an attachment to email, and you can look at it for yourself. You can call to confirm that, yes, this is a bona fide police report. I reported that my medical school had falsified information in December of 2005. When I was illegally convicted, 5 years later, Detective Cologne, on the witness stand, lied. And what he said was he didn't take my complaints seriously because he claimed that my complaints were made after my medical school had complained about me. He said that I had a retaliatory motive, and he wondered why no one would take my complaints seriously, because I had described to him from 2005 all the meetings and proper steps that I had taken through a state guarantee agency, all the things that I had to do to try to get my financial records corrected. Detective Cologne lied. I reported federal student loan fraud in 2005, so my complaints against my medical school were made first. They were made for fraud, not for aggravated harassment. I had no retaliatory motive. And the reason nobody wanted to do anything was because for fraud in the administration of federal student loans, Yeshiva University would lose its ability to administer these programs forever. So once again, my complaints came first. They were for fraud. I had no retaliatory motive, and nobody wanted to do anything because the consequences to Yeshiva University are huge. Now, let me show you the other part of this police report from 2005, and let me just increase the magnification a little bit so you can see it. And again, if you would like to email us at crookedDoctors, that's one word, crookedDoctors@yahoo.com, and you would like a copy of this police report, I will email it to you. I'm going to put it up on YouTube videos. I will be doing, by the way, a saturation, 1,000-piece saturation mailing to criminal defense attorneys so they can use this. I'm sure Detective Cologne really wants to, is really thrilled about me doing this on public access TV. That's just tough. So let's see if I can increase the magnification of this a little bit. By the way, if you'd like to call us, we're at 212-245-7273. That's 212-245-7273. You can use this information to defend yourselves if you're being prosecuted. Here we go. Let me increase the view just a little bit. Whoops. Sorry about that. Okay. So, Sergeant James Sullivan contacted Sergeant James Sullivan. It was the police officer I spoke to. I talked to him about how I had been paying an illegal debt. The victim, that's me, further states that she has been paying this debt since 1997. This was an illegal debt. My school had falsified financial information. I'm going to show you. You can see this. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Here we go. The victim further states that she has been paying this debt since 1997. Let me just go down a little bit here. Sergeant James Sullivan has advised the victim that this matter may need to be further investigated in the place where the act occurred. This is in the Bronx, New York. Sergeant James Sullivan contacted the detective with the NYPD, the Detective Bureau, and asked to advise the victim to contact the Assistant District Attorney, Thomas Leahy, Bureau of Chief Rackets Division in the Bronx, and the East detectives were also advised. The East detectives are the detectives in Jersey City. So what you got here is a police report from 2005 that shows that my complaints were made first. Yeshiva University did not, my complaints were made first in 2005. In 2006, I went to the State Guarantee Agency with other student victims of Yeshiva University. We sat down with the supervising attorney, Cheryl Fisher. We brought community leaders with us and activists with us who signed affidavits confirming that we were there. I contacted the American Medical Students Association so they can monitor our cases. In 2007, my congressman in Jersey referred me to Congressman Miller's hearings in Washington in May of 2007, which I attended, tugged on the United States Secretary of Education at that point in time was Margaret Spellings. I tugged on her sleeve, Ms. Spellings, I've been victimized in the federal student loan program and I need your help. And I approached her twice. It's interesting because subsequently I saw her at I bumped into her at a Reverend Sharpton event, and we talked things over a little bit. And, you know, I'll get to that in a moment, but the bottom line is Judge Patterson in May of 2005 made stuff up. In June of 2005, I discovered falsified financial information 1 month later, which gave me newly discovered evidence so that I could amend my federal complaint based on newly discovered evidence. This is a 60B4 motion, and yes, I will be showing you that so you can confirm for yourself. And then from June of 2005 onward, myself and other students who had contacted me did everything that we were supposed to do to have the State Guarantee Agency and the federal government weigh in, and they didn't because they protected the school. And in response to Detective Cologne's question, well, how come all these people didn't do anything? All these people didn't do anything because the consequences for federal student loan fraud are huge. Yeshiva University will lose its ability to administer these programs forever. There is no way for Yeshiva University to regain its eligibility. When I was in Washington in May of 2007, due to Congressman Miller's open public hearings about fraud in the private loan programs, the response, the feedback I got was, oh, who cares? So what if we lose the public money, the federal student loan program? We'll just replace them with private loans. And I'm like, you know, you guys ain't getting this. You've committed fraud. You've lied to steal money from students. And I got a phone call from a student, former student at Einstein named Mike Tyberg. Mike Tyberg and I went down to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office in 2008 and made good faith efforts after we had been to Albany and talked to Cheryl Fisher, the supervising attorney, and asked her to weigh in. We have a state guarantee agency that's supposed to make sure that what happened to us didn't happen. I paid the state guarantee agency 1 to 3% of my federal student loans. They have a duty to me. They have a legal obligation. I paid the state guarantee agency, and their job, they're charged by law to make sure that the kinds of things that happened to me and other students, the crimes and transgressions, didn't happen. So when the state guarantee agency didn't do its job, me and Mike Tyberg went down in summer of 2008, and we sat down with Assistant District Attorney Jonathan Lenzer's assistant, and asked the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, this is Robert Morgenthal's office, to enforce the law. Yeshiva University is maintaining false business records. Maintaining false business records is a crime, and the Manhattan District Attorney's Office had no problem prosecuting Torah College for maintaining false business records. So please do your job and enforce the law with regard to Yeshiva University. They refused. Instead, Yeshiva University made false criminal charges against me in 2009. So once again, in May of 2005, Judge Patterson ruled against me wrongly. He made stuff up. 1 month later, in June of 2005, I discovered falsified financial information. Me and other students made good faith efforts to work through Congressman Weiner's office and to contact the Bronx District Attorney. We were treated dismissively. So in December of 2005, I went down to the Jersey City Police Department, made a complaint through the Jersey City Police Department, filed a police report, and the Jersey City Police Department reached out to the Bronx District Attorney's Office. So my complaints against Yeshiva University came first. They were for fraud. I had no retaliatory motive. And the reason nobody wanted to do anything was because the consequences to Yeshiva University for fraud in the administration of federal student loans is huge and irreversible. So in 2009, when my medical school made false criminal charges against me, claiming they were annoyed because I sought to access and correct my records, they had a retaliatory motive. I didn't. My complaints came first. Detective Cologne lied on the witness stand. Now, this police report shows that. So this is the police report. Let me bring down the zoom a little bit. This is the second page of the police report in 2005. And you've got it here. This is the first page, and you've got it here. This is the second page. If you'd like to email us, I'd be happy to send you these documents. And this is page 39 of my criminal trial transcript, where I'm trying to tell the judge, this is page 39 of my criminal trial transcript, where I'm trying to tell the judge, my attorney did a terrible job. You do not want to hire this guy. This is Michael J. Redenberg. And I'm trying to tell the judge, look, my attorney doesn't want to cross-examine the detective, and the judge, this would be Judge Edward J. McLaughlin, says, we're done, and I protest. I say no. No, Your Honor, we're not quite done because I reported this in 2005. And the judge says it doesn't matter a twit. Yes, it does matter, okay? Here's the judge saying it doesn't matter. Yes, it does matter. Why does it matter? Because my medical school didn't make complaints against me until 2009. My complaints were made in 2005. My complaints came first. I had no retaliatory motive. My complaints were made for fraud. So when Detective Cologne got on the witness stand and said, we didn't take Ms. Radin seriously, she made her complaints after the school complained about her, she had a retaliatory motive, we're not going to listen to her, he lied. The police report shows that he lied. And when I was protesting to the judge when he was leaving the witness stand and my attorney, Michael J. Redenberg, refused to cross-examine him, and by the way, this is reflected in my criminal trial transcript as, the defendant has conferred with her attorney. I didn't confer with Michael J. Redenberg. I was at his throat saying, you cannot let this police detective leave the witness stand. You have to cross-examine him. This is not a game. He just lied. And Mr. Michael J. Redenberg refused to do that. I had the police report with me. Mr. Redenberg refused to present evidence because if he had presented this evidence, he would discredit Detective Cologne, and I would not have been illegally convicted and illegally incarcerated. So I talked to the judge, and I tell the judge, I need to fire my attorney because he's participating in having me railroaded. The judge refused to let me fire my attorney and handle my own defense. At least I could have gone down fighting. And you see here where I'm telling the judge, and over again in my criminal trial transcript, I'm saying, Your Honor, my attorney refuses to defend me. He refuses to present evidence. I'm being railroaded. And I say, Your Honor, we're not done. Please don't let the detective leave the witness stand. We're not quite done because I reported this in 2005, and the judge says it doesn't matter. It does matter, okay? This is not a game, what these people did. Judge Edward J. McLaughlin participated, and here comes those words, in an organized criminal conspiracy to illegally convict and illegally incarcerate me, and I'm showing you example after example. Now again, the purpose of this show is to put enough facts out there in the public forum, not only to protect my life, but to protect the lives of other innocent victims, because the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, in my case, was used as a weapon, as a means of aggression to hurt me. Right now, there's a woman named Africa O's. She was my next door neighbor when I was at Rikers Island. I was in Building 5. She was the next building over, and I handed this information to her, and I said, the judge in your case is Judge Edward J. McLaughlin. He's not honest. He conspired to illegally convict and incarcerate me. Please use this information to get yourself another judge. I don't know if you're guilty of what they're accused of, the allegations against you, but what I do know is that the system is set up to be rigged, and you could be railroaded as easily as I was. I was referred, I understand that there are community leaders that are trying to help Africa O's, like the Abyssinian Church and Congressman Rangel's office and Reverend Sharpton. I'm a member of Reverend Sharpton's National Action Network, by the way, and proud of it. And I want to put in a little plug for Reverend Sharpton, because there was a point in time where nobody would defend me except for Reverend Sharpton, and I'll get into those details later. So if you have the ability to communicate this information to people like Africa O's, and tell her that she, it's not a matter of, well, the judge hasn't done anything to her case yet. We don't set up a system where we let a judge railroad one person and then he'll just continue to rule on cases, you know, until he screws up in another case. We don't do that. We don't let a police detective lie to hurt the person and then just say, well, he just lied to hurt her, he just persecutes her, or he'll just lie anytime he wants. He lies in all the cases or some of the cases or just your case. That's not the way the system works. So if you are being prosecuted and Detective Cologne is involved in your case, you win, because Detective Cologne has no credibility. And if it's your word against Detective Cologne's word, you win, because Detective Cologne has no credibility. Please call me. I will share this evidence with you, and you can use it to defend yourself, because what happened to me should not happen to you. If you can, I'll be going to Congressman Rangel's office. I did live in Washington Heights, and I'm litigating to get my home back, my apartment back in Washington Heights. And I was referred by Congressman Nadler's office. He's been hearing about our cases against Yeshiva University for years. And I will be going to Congressman Rangel's office and asking him to use this information. I certainly think Congressman Rangel should weigh in and make sure that a dishonest police detective does not hurt anybody else, and that a dishonest judge comes down off the bench. And I would expect a phone call to District Attorney Vance's office saying, could you please clean house, because this is not what the District Attorney is supposed to be doing. Now, about a week ago, as I said, I talked to District Attorney Vance at a public event in front of lots of witnesses, and he was willing to have a meeting with me and my attorneys and other civic leaders. And at that meeting, we're going to ask District Attorney Vance what he plans on doing about a police detective who lied on the witness stand to illegally convict and incarcerate me, and what he plans on doing about Assistant District Attorney Alex Spiro, who intentionally presented perjured testimony. When an assistant district attorney intentionally presents perjured testimony, he loses his license to practice law. So does Assistant District Attorney Michelle Bayer. She is ADA Alex Spiro's trial supervisor, and I went to her with my attorney to say what's happening here is wrong, and she metaphorically spit in my face too. So we've got more crime and corruption than we know what to do with. And this show, Crooked Doctors, is not just about the harm towards me. It's how you can use this information to protect yourselves against a corrupt system. So what I'm going to do is, because I see that we're nearing towards the end of our time, and I wasn't really sure how much I would get done. But what you can do is send us an email at crookeddoctors@yahoo.com. If you like, you can go to, we're going to be putting all this up on YouTube videos. We have our call-in show, which is every week on Fridays from 6 to 7 at 212-245-7273. You can call us, you can ask questions. Next week I'm going to have a guest who will be with me for the hour. He happens to be a community leader. He's very credible. He has a few things to say about Yeshiva University that I think you'll be interested in. And what I'd like to do next week is present some evidence that shows, and again, I can do this very quickly. In fact, I think I'll start now. John Scarfone is Associate General Counsel at Yeshiva University. John Scarfone went into federal court in 2006 and lied about me. And here's what John Scarfone said. And here what I'm going to do is change the view. So this is a page from John Scarfone's affidavit. I just want to share this with you in the last few minutes before I wrap up my show. This is, as I was saying, I was named as a witness in other students' cases. There was a woman who was suing the school. She asked me to be a witness in her case. I said yes. And in order to discredit me as a witness, John Scarfone went into federal court in 2006. This is before 2009. So 3 years before the school, John Scarfone and the school filed false charges against me. 3 years before, I was named as a witness against the school, and they tried to discredit me, saying that when I was a first-year student, I had failed all my classes except for one class, Todd Olson's anatomy class. That's not true. And we can see it right here where, and I'm going to read this to you. Here's what John Scarfone swore to in court in 2006. In fact, Dr. Olson's anatomy course is the only class Miss Radin passed during her first year of medical school. Okay, that's a lie. In fact, let me just read this to you. In fact, Dr. Olson's anatomy course is the only class Miss Radin passed during her first year of medical school. Okay, that's a lie. That's not true. How do you know that that's not true? Because when I was defending myself against these false criminal charges, there was a subpoena that was issued to my medical school, and they released my performance evaluations from a class that I took as a first-year student called ICM, or Introduction to Clinical Medicine. Now, here's how bad things got. When I got out of Rikers Island after serving 11 months for crimes that I'm not guilty of, I went down to the criminal courts, and what I discovered was that in 2009, this is a year before trial, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office had documentary evidence that showed that John Scarfone had lied about me. They had in their possession, and this was hidden from me and my attorneys, and that's called the crime of obstruction of justice. That's a very serious crime. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office had performance evaluations from a class called ICM that showed I did not fail all my classes as a first-year student. Recall that was John's. This is a document that was released to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. They had this document. They had 3 performance evaluations from a class called Introduction to Clinical Medicine, and these performance evaluations showed that I did not fail all my classes as a first-year medical student. I'm noticing that we're running out of time, so I'm just going to wrap this up. The purpose of my show is to put facts on the record to protect my life and to help other innocent victims who are being persecuted like me. Please use this information. I'll be here on Fridays from 6 to 7 p.m. My shows will be taped. They're going to be put on Blimp TV, raw, unedited footage. We're going to edit some of this footage and put it on YouTube. If you're a pre-med and you're considering applying to the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, please call me or email me, because there's information that you need to know. Had someone told me some of this information, I had offers to go to other medical schools. I would be a doctor today. I would not be fighting false criminal charges. I would not be scared to death of a Manhattan detective, police detective, who lied. Detective Cologne is on the force by, oh, I see that we're running out of time. So let me give you our email address, I can send you, this is our show, just to remind you as we're going out. This is our Crooked Doctors show live. It's a live call-in show. You can call me and ask questions. If you need to email me, you can email me at crookeddoctors@yahoo.com. And guess we're out.